Hi everyone and welcome back to the Q&A. It's been a busy week this week. So this week I've been creating a whole entire perimenopause hub for my squaddies as a place for extra support for all ladies going through this transition. And I've learned a lot. So you might be thinking, okay, Lorna, yeah, but you're not going through the perimenopause. Like, how do you know? I've learned a lot over the years through my own knowledge and also through helping hundreds and hundreds of women through this transition. And I was actually misdiagnosed myself a couple of years ago when me and Will started trying for a family. And that led me down this huge rabbit hole of learning everything under the sun and everything that actually really does work. So I'm creating a huge hub. It's going to be mainly based on the holistic side of things. So in terms of HRT, I would absolutely, if you feel like the perimenopause is really affecting your quality of life, I'd absolutely 100% speak to a GP about the different HRT options. And there are so many. And please don't feel trapped in using one. You can, if you find that you've been on HRT for a while and actually it's not working for you anymore, you can always change to a different type and talk about changing the dosage, etc. But a lot of what I will be talking about and a lot of my advice is based on the holistic side of things. So how to manage your diet, your exercise, your sleep in the best way possible to support yourself through this transition. Anyway, that actually leads us really nicely into our first question, which is related to the perimenopause. Now, for those of you who don't know, I feel like I ought to explain what that actually is. So the perimenopause is a transition that every single woman will go through. And it's where essentially our body says we're not wanting to reproduce anymore. And we have this point in time called the menopause, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with the term. And that is the exact moment in time when you've not had a period in 12 months. But we kind of use menopause as this umbrella term for the whole perimenopause, menopause and postmenopause sort of time. But menopause is actually one exact moment in time. And the perimenopause is that time leading up to it. And it's when our hormones are fluctuating and gradually declining. They don't just decline in a nice linear fashion, though. It's very much a fluctuation. And for some women, it can be a really, really, really difficult and quite dark time, actually. And this time, it can last anything from about 3 years to a decade. And most women tend to go through it round about, well, the average age in the UK is 51, but most women tend to go through it between the ages of about 45 to 55. But some women can start going through the perimenopause in their mid-30s. So if you are in your mid-30s to around about sort of mid-50s, late 50s, and you're experiencing hormonal fluctuations, maybe you're getting hot flashes, maybe you're starting to get brain fog, maybe you're finding that weight is actually sitting around your stomach and it never used to, or your workouts just aren't effective as they used to be, you're definitely not alone. And I'm going to be talking more and more and more about this. So if you are someone who is struggling and you're not a squaddie, come and join us. You'll have access to the full perimenopause hub. And also I'm releasing a perimenopause reset guide. So just message me perimenopause, I'll send that over. It's really, really simple. Some of the basic things you want to focus on. Anyway, as I said, the first question is really related to perimenopause. It's about the perimenopause. So I've been wanted to ask for a while for your advice on recommendations from, e.g. Stacey Sims, about not doing too much exercise in perimenopause in terms of it actually being detrimental, worsening cortisol, and that perimenopausal women should instead be doing a very small number of reps but heavy, and how that fits with LMF workouts and the timetable. She speaks very authoritatively on how a lot of existing research, received wisdom, is not actually based on research that works for perimenopausal women, and that working out in the same way that works for men really isn't what we need. It left me pretty confused about what I'm meant to be doing, to be honest. Also, with meal timing around workouts in perimenopause seem to be conflicting advice from different quarters. Stacey Sims versus Mindy Pels, for example. Yes, there is so much information out there and so much conflicting information out there. It really is like information overwhelm. And wherever you go, you feel like someone is trying to sell you something. And then all of a sudden you click on something and then your algorithm is just peppering you with things that are going to fix perimenopause. But one thing that experts like Stacey Sims has highlighted is that a lot of exercise research has historically been done on men. Yes, that is true. And perimenopausal women can respond differently to training. That is also true. And so the conversation that's evolving around this is actually a really, really good thing. But it can be really confusing when one method is presented as the only right and correct way to train, because that isn't true. Let's just start off by talking about exercise and cortisol, because a lot of people think that cortisol is dangerous or it's harmful, and actually it's really natural, and it's a natural response to exercise as well. And some people claim that intense exercise is harmful in perimenopause because it raises our cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. But a few important things you need to know. As I said, cortisol is not bad. It's a hormone that rises during exercise naturally, and short spikes during training are actually part of how the body adapts and gets fitter. But the problem happens when our overall stress load is too high. So if we have a very high training volume, if our sleep's really bad, if we're under eating, if we've got really high life stress, or if we're doing too many intense workouts, they're all stacked together. So the issue isn't the exercise itself, but it's too much stress without enough recovery. That is the problem. And actually, high intensity exercise is fantastic for us and really, really brilliant for our cardiovascular health. But what tends to work well in this time, perimenopause, and this is obviously very generalistic, every person is going to be slightly different, but strength training, 2 to 3 times a week, some high intensity cardio, but we're not talking about every day here, and lots of lower intensity movement, light walking, and of course some Pilates, yoga to support joints and recovery. So actually basically very close to how we structure our timetable. Well, it is how we structure our timetable. Now, the heavy lifting only advice, it does not have to be like that. Research actually shows that it's all about our training volume as opposed to how heavy we lift. So there's almost 2 schools of thought, really. You've got the school that's more heavy and low reps, and then you've got the school that is lighter and more reps. The most important thing, and research has shown this time and time again, it's all about the overall volume. As long as you're doing strength training, that's the most important thing. So yes, things like we do in Stronger, that's more muscular endurance. We do lift, we do strength training. It's more on the side of higher reps, lower weights. There's not a problem with that. You will build muscular tone doing that. And strength training is so important to be doing, because we have declining estrogen, and that can contribute to muscle loss, reduced bone density, a slower metabolism to an extent as well. But moderate weights and reps are brilliant. Heavier weights are brilliant. Resistance circuits are brilliant. Using your body weight is brilliant. The key principle is your muscles need to be challenged regularly. That's it, full stop. And for many women training at home, the consistency is way more important than trying to hit max lifts. You just got to do the thing that you enjoy. So with our timetable, it perfectly supports what you need, because you got the strength sessions there, like Stronger, like upper body, like lower body. Now, of course, I did say you need to challenge your muscles. So if we're standing there and every single week for the next 2 years we're lifting 1 kilo weights, okay, maybe that's not really going to work. The challenge is there, and in our Stronger classes, we actually do progressively overload through the weeks. As you know, we add the weights on. So anyway, you've got the strength sessions there for your muscle and your bone health. You've got the cardio sessions for your heart health and fitness. Yes, you've got higher intensity, and yes, you've got more lower intensity as well. As long as you're recovering adequately, that's the most important thing. And then Pilates and mobility for our joint posture and for recovery. That variety is actually ideal for perimenopausal women, and actually for everybody. Depending on, if you're wanting to try and train for an Ironman or something, then I'll be, or a bodybuilding competition, I'll be advising you differently. But if you're looking for overall general health, well-being, strength, fitness, this is perfect. But if someone is feeling, say, really tired from lots of intense workouts, then that's where you need to scale it back a bit. That might be where you think, okay, I'm going to reduce the amount of HIIT that I'm doing, or I'm going to prioritize my strength, Pilates, and some walking. But there is no need to eliminate whole categories of training unless your body is clearly telling you that something is not working. Okay, then if we go to the part about the eating around workouts, again, a lot of conflicting advice online here. So Stacey Sims, she tends to encourage fueling your workouts. And then you've got Mindy Pels, who promotes fasting approaches. And to be honest, the evidence overall suggests these few key things, and that is adequate protein is so important for your muscle maintenance. Chronic underfueling can make your fatigue worse and also contribute to muscle loss, sarcopenia. And eating in a way that is going to support your energy and your recovery, that is the most important thing. So in simple terms, that means, not training hard when we're underfueled, including protein after workouts and actually eating at regular windows throughout the day, ideally, and eating regularly enough to support your training. And there isn't any strong evidence that strict timing rules are essential for most people. And the perimenopause, it doesn't mean that all the rules need to change overnight. The fundamentals still matter the most, and that's your strength training regularly. You're not doing super intense workouts every single day. You're eating enough protein and overall calories, and you are sleeping and recovering well and staying consistent. And if a training style makes you feel strong, it makes you feel capable, it makes you feel energized, then it's a very good sign that actually it's working for you. So that is the very unsexy middle ground that is actually the honest, the truth. And you will see lots of conflicting advice because that's what makes headlines. But no one really talks about the middle, which is really kind of listening to your body and just putting the fundamentals in place. Now, this question is linked to the previous one. It's how soon after eating is it okay to do a workout? I'm keen to do one between dinner and bedtime. Now, there isn't a single perfect rule, and normally it comes down to what feels comfortable in your own body. So as a rough guide, if you eat a large meal, you want to wait about 60 to 90 minutes before you're doing a workout. And if it's just a light meal or a snack, 30 to 60 minutes is usually fine. Again, it depends on the person. When we eat, blood flow is directed towards our digestion. So this is why jumping straight into a hard workout can feel uncomfortable. Like we can just feel heavy. So if you're planning to train between dinner and bed, you want to have that in mind, and also maybe the type of session as well. So in the evening, sessions like Pilates, mobility, light stretching, or some light strength, dance, fitness, aerobics, power walking, they can work better. And more intense sessions like a HIIT or a combat, maybe not so much, because they can make it harder to wind down before you go to bed. You can feel a little bit tired but wired when you go to bed, but that varies from person to person. Some people will be able to do a HIIT session and then a couple of hours later be fast asleep. So it just depends on you. And if the evenings are the only time you can train, that's absolutely fine. The consistency is the most important thing. So consistency is way more important than perfect timing. So one small tip, if you do decide to train later, try and finish at least 60 minutes before bedtime so your body has some time to settle. And if something leaves you feeling sluggish or uncomfortable, then maybe just leave a little more time after eating next time, or you can have part before, part after, then that really helps. But actually, do you know what? Sometimes exercising can really, really help. It helps insulin sensitivity after a workout as well. So you'll quite often hear a lot of advice that says, if you feel bloated after a meal, go for a light walk after dinner. You hear people say, oh, walk it off. And there is an element of truth to it, because after we eat, our blood sugar rises, and then we move our muscles. They essentially pull glucose out of the bloodstream to use as energy, which brings those levels down. So even something just like a light walk or a light workout after dinner can help to reduce that blood sugar spike as well. So just a little bit of food for thought. Next question. Is clicking normal when you exercise? I sound like a glow stick. Ankle, wrist, back, no pain, just clicking. Yes, that is really normal, and it's a good sign that there isn't any pain attached to it as well. And it can be air, it can be a ligament or a tendon going over a joint as well, particularly if you hear, that clunking sort of noise. But if there's no swelling, there's no pain, there's no sharp pain, generally speaking, it's just not a problem at all, and it really can be quite normal as well. Absolutely can't do lunges. My knees seem not to be able to cope. Help! Okay, a few things might be going on here. So lunges, they require a lot of balance and stability. Tight hips or weak glutes, they can make the knee take more of the load as well. So putting a bit of unnecessary load through that knee. And lunges put quite a lot of pressure on that front knee. So when you do a lunge, you take, either take a step back or a step forwards. Your knees are roughly 90 angle. It does put a lot of load on that front knee. So if the knee is doing most of the work in the lunge, it's about the quads, it's about the glutes. If the knee is doing most of the work, it can feel really uncomfortable. So these are just a few really quick tips. You can hold on to something. So hold on to something just as you practice and build up your strength in this. Do a reverse lunge, or take a step backwards, so then your shin is parallel with, like, say, the wall, perpendicular to the floor. They put less pressure on the knee than a forward stepping one. Make sure the movement is really controlled, and you can always reduce the depth of it as well. You can always reduce the depth of that lunge. But just make sure, just a real quick pointer here, if you do feel it through your knee, just make sure you're pushing your knee towards the little toe and you're pressing down hard with your heel. That's going to make the glutes work harder as well. And sometimes people do lunges and the knee is tracking inwards, it's collapsing. And that is a sign that we're not using our glute medius properly. So we're not engaging the glutes properly. So just have a little look at that. Make sure we're not leaning too far forwards. And if you're not sure about your position with a lunge, go down on one knee like you're going to propose, tuck your toes under and then come up. And that is generally a really, really good lunge. But it might also be worth just checking your hips, your hip mobility, and then also checking your glute strength. And you can do that by sitting down on a chair. If you lift one foot slightly off the floor and stand up using the other leg, just look to see what happens. So does your knee collapse in? Do you have to lean really far forward, or can you actually just simply not get up? And that can suggest that the glutes on that side, they're not doing their fair share of work. And strong glutes are really, really important to control the knee position. So it could be a little bit of glute weakness, and it could be a little bit of hip tightness as well. But yeah, just of course, check your technique first and foremost. When you're unwell, how long should you give yourself to recover before exercising? I appreciate it depends on what kind of illness, but just as a general rule of thumb. Okay, so the general rule of thumb that a lot of doctors tend to use is if the symptoms are above the neck, like a runny nose, sore throat, bit of congestion, general exercise or lighter exercises, it's normally fine. If you feel up to it, that is. But if symptoms are below the neck, like body aches, a stomach bug, a fever, or a cough, particularly, a chesty cough, it's really best to wait until symptoms are properly settled. And if you've had a fever or a sickness bug, at least 48 hours after the symptoms stop before you start exercising again. That's what doctors tend to use. But the most important thing is just to listen to how you feel. And don't forget that when you're not very well, your body is going to want to use any additional energy to get you better faster. So the best thing to do for our health is to really pull it back, whether that's choosing very light workouts or just actually taking that time to rest so that you can get back to your fitness faster. That is the quickest way to get back to the workouts, and it's actually what the body needs for your health and for your well-being when you're not very well. So please, I know a lot of people feel guilty when they're not exercising, when they're not very well. Please don't. You're giving your body exactly what it needs. And then when you do return, when you start to feel better, ease back in gradually rather than jumping straight into intense sessions, of course. Just keep listening to how you feel. You might need a few extra rest days in there when you first go back to it. What's the best way to lose belly fat? Okay, firstly, it's worth saying here that we can't spot reduce fat, meaning we can't choose an area on our body that we want to specifically burn fat from. Fat loss is going to happen across the whole body, and where it comes off first is largely influenced by our genetics and by our hormones as well. But that being said, there are some things that can help reduce overall body fat, including belly fat too. So I'm just going to go through a few pointers here. Now, first thing is resistance training, so strength training. That helps to improve your body composition, maintain or even build muscle, and it supports your metabolism as well. And that's why strength sessions are so valuable, and of course for our bone density, especially as we get older. And muscle helps our body to use energy more efficiently. So you know how I use the example of when you go on a walk after you've had a meal, even something so simple as that. Secondly, a small but sustainable calorie deficit. So fat loss ultimately happens when the body is using slightly more energy than it's actually taking in. And that doesn't mean that we need to be a hamster on a wheel and doing loads and loads of exercise to burn calories. It doesn't mean that. And it also doesn't mean extreme dieting. And actually, in fact, really aggressive calorie cuts can backfire. It leads to increased hunger and fatigue, and we can just end up being a very hangry and not very nice person to be around. So a small, consistent deficit over time, that tends to work best as well and helps us to hold on to that lean muscle mass as we're losing weight. Talking of that, adequate protein, there's another thing. It's going to help you maintain your lean muscle, keep you fuller for longer, and help to support you in your recovery from exercise. And for a lot of people, even just simply basing each meal around a protein source or increasing their protein slightly can make fat loss a lot easier to sustain and mean that we're not getting these huge cravings. Daily movement. So yeah, we want our strength training, we want structured workouts, but just general daily movement here. So walking, steps, just that background movement. So making sure you get enough steps in. Make sure you're managing your sleep and your stress where you can, because if you're not sleeping well, chronic stress and sleep deprivation, it can really influence our appetite hormones and our hunger hormones. It really kind of mess with us, because the next day we can wake up, if we're not very well rested and we're feeling really tired, our body is going to want fast energy. So ghrelin is going to increase. Maybe we're not going to be making as good decisions because actually we're really fatigued and we're really tired. So sleep and stress, that's really important. And it's also worth noting here that in perimenopause and menopause, declining estrogen shifts where we hold on to our body fat. So ladies, we do end up holding it around our tummies, but that's just where our body prefers to then hold the body fat. It doesn't mean that we have to, except saying expanding waistlines. We don't. It's just that our body now prefers to hold it there instead of maybe around our legs, around our bottom. It prefers to hold it around the midline. So is there anything we can do about it? Yes, all of the above things that I mentioned. So really, the most effective approach if you're wanting to lose weight around the belly is adequate protein, getting enough sleep, good sleep, balance your nutrition, strength training, and just keeping that background regular movement going. They're the most important things. And just I want to say something here as well. Like if your sleep isn't very good, because if you are somebody who's going through the perimenopause, it can really affect sleep. Just remember that the next day, okay, we might not be wanting to make the best choices. Our cravings might be higher, but you own the choice on whether you act on them or not. So just remember that you have the power to choose, even though it is going to feel, yes, a little bit trickier when we're tired to make good decisions. So just something to bear in mind. How can I train my memory again? I'm currently not performing much for memory, but I'll have concerts next year that require very reliable memory, and I kind of need a reset for that. How brilliant, and how very exciting, by the way. So memory is actually linked to our brain health. So you're in the right place, 100%, because a lot of the things that support your body physically also really support your brain. So regular exercise, and that is a massive one. Exercise increases the blood flow to our brain, and that obviously in turn helps with our learning and with our memory. It stimulates something called BDNF. It's sometimes nicknamed fertilizer for our brain. And it helps our brain cells grow and form stronger connections. So even things like our strength training, our cardio sessions, or just a brisk walk, that can massively support memory and cognitive performance as well. Strength training and coordination, to any exercises that require coordination and balance, can stimulate the brain. So things like yoga escape, Pilates, or even dance can be really useful. So challenging both the body and the brain at the same time. And strength training, we're challenging the body, and I think also like proving to ourselves what we can do. I think, when you feel stronger and you feel good in your body, our confidence improves, and that also, I feel, helps with our brain health too. Sleep, that is where we consolidate our memory, that REM sleep. And if it's poor, it becomes a lot harder to retain all the information and to actually recall information as well. So just getting consistent and good quality sleep, they're going to be the biggest factors in memory performance, where possible, of course. Then a couple more things as well. Stress management. So When we're feeling really stressed, that can actually interfere with our memory, because stress hormones like cortisol, they can affect areas of the brain involved in learning and in recall. So things like exercise, relaxation, breath work, or just even spending time outdoors can help regulate this really, really well. And nutrition is so important. So did you know that the brain uses about 20% of our energy each day? The brain uses a lot of energy. So being consistent with fuel helps. So making sure you're having balanced meals. If you ever skipped a meal or not eaten, say, a proper meal, maybe you've been snacking your way through the day and by the end of the day just cannot concentrate anymore. So have balanced meals. Omega-3 fats are really, really good for our brain health. Make sure you get enough omega-3s. Enough protein, and just staying well hydrated. And just in general, when practicing for other things, and this is what I find with choreography, learning choreography, practice away from the actual thing. So I practice in my head when I'm on a walk or in my car or on a run rather than in the studio, because it really, really helps just get it in my brain. And then practice at different starting points as well. And I would do this with learning dance choreography, or I would even just change like the way that I'm facing in the rooms. Rather than facing the mirror, I'd turn and face a different angle. And all of a sudden, it made my brain work so much harder, but it really, really helped to get it in. But the brain is extremely adaptable throughout life. So just by combining that mental practice with really good lifestyle habits, you're actually giving your brain the best environment to rebuild that memory reliably as well. Okay, I think, so we've got 2 questions about form. I've just done Tech Will's first press-up class on demand, and I wondered, as we're progressing through moving knees further back, is it better to stick on the knees with a deeper bend in the arms, or be on toes, or not go so deep? I can't keep the same depth on my toes yet. Okay, brilliant question. And firstly, well done for working through Will's press-up class. That is brilliant. He's doing his series now, so I hope everyone is finding that really, really useful. In general, I'd just focus on good range of movement and control rather than rushing to the toes. So if you can get a deeper bend of the arms with really good form on your knees, that's actually a really good place to be while you're building strength. When we move to the toes, a lot more body weight is being lifted. So it is completely normal for the depth to reduce at first. But we just want to really make sure we're just doing good form reps. And then once we've nailed them on our knees and they feel, not easy, they feel like you can do a few with good form, and then you feel ready, then we can maybe start to move on to toes. So a nice progression would be knees with a full range of movement, gradually move knees further back as per Will's programming, then start introducing the toes, even if the bend is a little bit smaller initially. And over time, when strength improves, the depth on the toes will naturally increase as well. Just focus on keeping the body in a straight line, controlling the lowering phase, because that's where a lot of strength is built. So in short, quality movement first, progression second. What's the best approach to take when faced with a class where you really can't do it? I found the chest section of the new Stronger class just impossible when I attempted it this week, and I really didn't know where to start. Okay, well, that chest track, I just want to say, is hard. And I think the best approach is to think, okay, this is difficult. I can't do it yet, but I will be able to soon. So it's just going to take patience and consistency. That's the most important thing. So if we just break this particular chest track down, it's using the barbell, and then we move on to push-ups. So use it and have it in 2 parts. Focus on the bar work first, and then focus on the push-ups. And in this particular release, we can go lighter with the bar. So if we're finding that bit tricky, just drop the weights and we can build that up as the weeks go on. And then we move to push-ups, obviously technique first and foremost on both of those things, so making sure we're getting the correct technique. And I expect everyone to have a break in that at some point, because we just keep going for like a good solid 3 minutes. So we can measure progress on how many breaks do we need. You can start doing push-ups with your knees underneath the hips. That's going to reduce intensity. And as time goes on, take the knees further back. So as Will's been doing in his push-up series, and definitely do the push-up series, by the way, and that's really, really good and will be really helpful. And then just count how many rests you need to have. And then as the weeks go on, we can see if we can knock down those rests. But definitely don't give up. And if there's anything you're not sure on technique-wise, just let me know. But what I would say is we can't do it yet. And it is absolutely solid, but it will get us stronger as well. And then it will be so, so rewarding when you start to really, really feel your strength build within that track. So big well done. Anyway, team, I hope you've enjoyed that today. I really, really loved diving into these questions and particularly really getting into the perimenopause this week as well. So please do let me know if you're listening to this on the podcast, leave a little comment just letting me know how you found this, or if you found it useful, do share it on your socials. Let me know. I would love to know. I love doing these things and I love helping, so yeah, please do let me know. And if you are listening to this and you are not part of the online squad and you're wanting to improve your health, improve your fitness, and maybe improve your confidence doing lifts or improve your brain health, whatever that might be for you, then please do get in touch. Head to our website, lornamariefitness.co.uk, and doors are open for our 6-week course, which is how everybody starts with us. And it's honestly the best way to start. Anyway, team, have a lovely, lovely day, and I will catch up with you soon. Bye.